There is no team in the NBA, maybe outside of the Houston Rockets, that has had a better and more productive offseason than the Atlanta Hawks. This team has retooled and revamped this roster around Trae Young. They have significantly improved on both sides of the ball, and this is a team in a wide open Eastern Conference that can make a ton of noise, and the Atlanta Hawks are going to be my sleeper team to come out of the Eastern Conference this season. Now, first and foremost, I do want to apologize if my voice doesn't sound too great. I'm really trying to get through it, so if I sound not 100%, I do apologize. Just please bear with me in this video. But in this video, I want to talk about how the Hawks became my sleeper team to come out of the East next season, especially in the Eastern Conference that's not going to feature Damian Lillard, Jason Tatum, or Tyrese Halliburton next season, who all have sustained season-ending injuries. And outside of the Cleveland Cavaliers, who look like the definitive #1 team as of right now, who's to say that the Atlanta Hawks cannot knock off the Cavs or any other top team in the East next year? So let's take it back to last year's deadline when the Atlanta Hawks traded away DeAndre Hunter to the Cleveland Cavaliers in exchange for Caris LeVert, George Niang, 2 future pick swaps, and 3 second-round picks. This was a win-win trade for both teams because Cleveland was able to get that athletic wing on the perimeter who's continuing to ascend, and Atlanta was able to get back some pieces in draft capital for the future. Caris LeVert left this offseason for the Detroit Pistons, and they were able to manage and utilize George Niang in that trade with the Boston Celtics and the Brooklyn Nets to acquire Kristaps Porzingis. The Hawks had also sent out Terrence Mann to the Brooklyn Nets, and that was probably one of the biggest and most underrated moves of this year's offseason, was the Atlanta Hawks landing Kristaps Porzingis. But the Hawks didn't stop there. They also went ahead and fleeced the New Orleans Pelicans on draft night by trading back from number 13 to number 23 overall, and they got the best of the unprotected picks in next year's draft between the New Orleans Pelicans and the Milwaukee Bucks, which is projected to be an extremely valuable pick. New Orleans, I have no idea what the hell they were thinking, but a big credit to Saleh, the general manager of the Atlanta Hawks. And Atlanta still didn't stop there. They also went ahead and did a sign and trade with the Minnesota Timberwolves to acquire Nickeil Alexander-Walker, one of the best and most underrated 3-and-D wings in the game of basketball today. They also went ahead and signed Luke Kennard, obviously one of the best catch-and-shoot sharpshooters in the game today. I think a career 43.8% shooter from behind the arc. That was an absolutely terrific signing to continue to add to the offensive arsenal that Atlanta already has. So now you've got a roster that features Trae Young, obviously one of the best and most underrated superstars in the game of basketball today, Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, Kristaps Porzingis, Onyeka Okongwu, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Zachary Risache, Luke Kennard, the list goes on. They have done an incredible job of rounding out this roster, ensuring that they're continuing to get the correct draft capital and assets for the future, and they also made sure that they're signing the correct players and they're building the correct players around Trae Young, not only with his offensive talent and skill set, but even with some of his defensive inefficiencies. They have guys on the perimeter in Risache, in Jalen Johnson, in Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who are going to make it a living hell for opposing guards on the perimeter night in and night out. Now, I don't think enough can be said about the job that Saleh has done this offseason, about acquiring those assets and making sure you round out this roster, and just the move to get Kristaps Porzingis, because to me, this is the move that really set Atlanta over the top for me as a team to come out of the Eastern Conference potentially next season, because Kristaps Porzingis is going to be such an X factor with his health. Kristaps is the perfect pairing to put alongside Trae Young, with his ability to stretch the floor, with his defensive prowess on the inside, with that length and that versatility that he provides. And of course, we know that Kristaps Porzingis can be a perfect screen and roller for Trae Young, because Trae Young has such incredible gravity, not only in the half court, but really playing up the pace, which is something that Atlanta does very well. I believe that they were top 3 in the NBA last year in pace of play, which is something that Kristaps Porzingis is going to have to get adjusted to, considering the fact that the Celtics were one of the slowest pace of play teams in the NBA last year. But you have Trae Young, who with his ability to not only score from the perimeter, but his ability with his gravity to suck defenders in, kick out to shooters, be able to create that gravity where guys are going to continue to collapse on him on the perimeter. You get those lob opportunities to Onyeka Okongwu, Jalen Johnson, Kristaps Porzingis. This roster really looks like it complements Trae Young's skill set. They're going to have the shooters on the perimeter, so you know you can't constantly collapse, but you're going to be able to kick out and spray to shooters. And Kristaps Porzingis is going to be the perfect X factor for this Atlanta Hawks team. And it goes without being said, just the fact that they have defensive versatility and they have those athletic 3-and-D wings. Off the top of my head, I don't think that there's a team, maybe outside of the Houston Rockets, that has better wing players, especially young wing players, than the Atlanta Hawks. Jalen Johnson is only continuing to ascend and get better, and we'll see how he continues to look as he gets into form as he's coming off an injury. Zachary Richichet, a top pick in last year's draft, really started to get more comfortable and settle into the game last year. I believe it was maybe around March when I started noticing how much better and more comfortable he looked with that Atlanta Hawks team as he got to the latter part of his rookie season. And then you just look at the fact that Nickeil Alexander-Walker is somebody who has continued to get better year in and year out. He's the perfect pairing. He fits exactly what Quinn Snyder's offense wants from a 3-and-D athletic guard. And then, of course, Dyson Daniels, one of the best and most tenacious defenders on the perimeter in the NBA. He should have been a defensive player of the year last year, but that's nothing to discredit from Evan Mobley. And the last thing that I really want to talk about with this video is just my expectations for Trae Young. And I've been somebody who has been a huge fan and supporter of Trae Young really since he came out of college back in 2018. I knew that he was the real deal after taking that Atlanta Hawks team to the conference finals back in 2021. But if I'm going to have some reservations or some expectations that I think fairly need to be placed on his shoulders, it's that I need him to show us and show the world once again why he is that guy. Now, I do believe Trae Young is that guy. But since 2021, Atlanta has been in the play-in tournament the last 4 seasons, and that's not quite all on Trae Young. Obviously, DeJounte Murray didn't really work out with that pairing. Nate McMillan, that pairing didn't really work out, and Landry Fields was not that great of a general manager. I understand that, but this is an opportunity now for Trae Young with a revamped and retooled roster that features incredible 3-and-D wings, a great stretch 5 center who really complements your game, and another year under Quinn Snyder's system. I really like the way that this Hawks roster is coming together, and I expect Trae Young to deliver. This is not only a Hawks team that looks significantly better, this is a wide open Eastern Conference, and I've lamented it before, and I'm going to say it yet again. I expect Trae Young to have the most pressure on him comparatively to any NBA superstar this upcoming season. And like I said, that's not to discredit what he did in 2021 by dragging Bogdanovich, John Collins, Cam Reddish, Danilo Gallinari, Clint Capella, and all of these guys to the conference finals. That was nothing short of impressive. That was one of the more impressive runs I have ever seen. But where I'm coming from at is the fact that this is such a significantly better roster. I know that Trae Young has only gotten better, and with time in a new system, he has looked significantly better operating under Quinn Snyder. I expect this team in a wide open Eastern Conference to at bare minimum get to the conference semifinals and potentially get to the conference finals and win the Eastern Conference. So I think that's fair expectations for me to put on to Trae Young to say, hey, look, we've seen what you can do. We know you've got the talents. We know you've got the skill set. We've seen you drag worse teams to the conference finals in what was something that was nothing short of impressive. Let's see you go ahead and do it again. So I really do expect Trae Young to go out there, continue to shut up the critics, and to show the world once again why he is one of the best and most underrated stars in the game of basketball. Because I feel like as NBA fans, we get so confused with Trae Young when having this conversation because oftentimes he really doesn't get the credit that he deserves. People say he's a defensive liability. People say that he really is just an inefficient player when you look at some of the advanced metrics. And while I wholeheartedly disagree, I also know just how great and just how talented he is, just how much he makes everyone else around him better simply off of his gravity because he is the offensive engine that gets everybody else involved. His ability to control the game, his ability to space the floor, and to dish out to open teammates. What I saw from Tyrese Halliburton getting that Pacers team to the finals with a maybe not undersized guard for Tyrese Halliburton, but a guy who plays a very similar skill set with Indiana, I expect Trae Young to have a very, very similar season to what Halliburton did, and I know that Trae Young can elevate his game and has obviously shown time and time again why he's one of the best guards in the game. So, having said that, I do expect Trae Young to have a ton of pressure on him to deliver this season. I expect the Atlanta Hawks to deliver this season, and they are by far my sleeper team of the Eastern Conference this season. Cleveland still has some questions to answer. We're going to have to see how Orlando looks with this revamped roster. And of course, we're going to have to see if Philadelphia can stay healthy with Joel Embiid and VJ Edgecombe now coming in. We're going to have to see how Detroit looks, especially potentially without Malik Beasley. There are questions in the Eastern Conference. and I expect this Atlanta Hawks team to be the team that steps up to the table. But thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you guys appreciate all of the work and content that I do here on YouTube, make sure you guys go ahead and drop me a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe bell to stay tuned for more NBA and hoops talk that I do here on YouTube. And let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below about the expectations that I have for the Hawks this season. And do you think that I'm putting too much pressure on Trae Young? I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. But thank you guys again for watching, and as always, I'll catch y'all on the next one.